Chapter 221 Heir to the Sea God's Pavilion. Yen Shaosh snapped. Of course we're waiting for you. Didn't you display everything yesterday because you wanted all of us to know? Go and wash up. I'll be waiting for you on the first level. Elderson called a conference specifically for you today. All the elders of the Sea God's Pavilion will be there. Think about how you're going to introduce Spirit to them. Who are you? Suddenly remembered. He'd been too focused on Wang Dongle last night and forgot this matter from before. Now, he was immediately jolted awake and acknowledged Yen Shaosh's words. He quickly went to wash up. Yen Shaosh smiled and shook his head as he looked at Huo Yuao. However, he didn't hide the blatant look of admiration on his face. He seemed to have been reminded of something. He sighed, then he turned and left. After washing up, Huo Yuao couldn't be bothered to eat breakfast and quickly rushed down. Just like Yen Shaosh had said, both sides of the long table were now seated with elders, with Elderson sitting in the main seat. Ever since Elderson became the master of the Sea God's Pavilion, he had stopped acting so sloppily. He was now dressed simply, and his hair was properly combed. There was a gentle, smiling light in his eyes. Apologies, elders, for making all of you wait. Huo Yuao rushed over and lowered his head in guilt. Elderson smiled and said, it should have been a good night for you. You and Donga are finally together, but we didn't sleep well last night. We were played with like little kids that don't know anything about this world. You should know that you're a part of us now after special permission was granted to you. You broke the age record to be a part of the Sea God's Pavilion. After hearing Elderson mentioning Huo Yuao and Wang Donga, the elders all started to smile. Huo Yuao lifted his head up at this moment and saw teacher Fan U and Zhang Lesun, as well as a few familiar elders. As they saw him looking over, they nodded to acknowledge him. The vice dean of the Soul Tour department, Chen Duo, laughed. Huo Yuao, come over here. Sit beside me. As he spoke, he pointed to an empty seat next to him, and even shot Yen Shaosh a provocative look. Yen Shaosh was unmoved as he turned his attention elsewhere, as if he didn't care about Chen Duo's attempt to assert his authority over him. Huo Yuao rushed beside Chen Duo and sat down. Zhang Lesun was opposite to him. The two of them were seated close to the main seat. Elderson said, Shaosh, host the conference. Let Yuao settle down first. I don't think you can explain clearly given how anxious he looks. Yes. Yen Shaosh acknowledged his words respectfully and replied, Elders, we called for this conference today because of Huo Yuao's unprecedented orange soul rings and the special abilities he demonstrated yesterday. At the same time, there are some things we need all of you to decide together. Yen Shaosh repeated a list of important matters to tend to. After a simple discussion, the elders made their decisions. The conference was proceeding very smoothly and efficiently thus far. Huo Yuao was still a little flustered at this point, as he was technically considered of equal standing to these various elders. Fortunately, he was spiritually strong. After a short period of tension, he finally calmed down and forgot all about Wang Donga temporarily. He thought about what he wanted to say. Yuao, are you ready? Can you introduce your special soul rings to us now? After they finalized the other matters he had addressed earlier, Yen Shaosh turned his attention to Huo Yuao. Huo Yuao stood up immediately and said, Dean Yen, Elderson and elders, let me demonstrate my abilities to all of you again. He stood up from his seat and came to a spacious spot to one side of the long table. With but a thought, the snow lady crawled out from his body. When she looked at everyone in front of her, her beautiful, deep blue eyes blinked. She wasn't afraid of strangers, but was slightly curious as she lifted her hand to point in Elderson's direction. Huo Yuao was stunned and quickly tried to stop her from pointing. He was afraid that she would harm Elderson. After all, she was very unpredictable. Even Uncle Titan was once taken advantage of by her. I call her the snow lady. My orange gold soul rings came from her. If we have to categorize her kind, I call her spirit. She's a special existence that's independent of soul rings, soul bones and martial souls. Huo Yuao's first sentence immediately attracted the attention of the elders. As they looked at the snow lady from such a close distance, the elders started to reveal benevolent looks in their eyes. After pondering for a moment, Huo Yuao said, talking about spirits, I need to start from the beginning. That's because this is related to a secret that I've kept for a long time. That's why I've never told anyone about it in the past. Only Elder Mu knew a little, but he didn't know the full story either. To tell the truth, there was another teacher in my spiritual sea. As he said this, he shocked everyone present. While the elders went young, their curiosity was greater than most youths. This was especially because there was hardly anything in this world that could arouse it anymore. When Huo Yuao decided to develop spirits, he knew that he couldn't conceal the secret regarding Electrolux anymore. Otherwise, he couldn't recount everything in enough detail or explain the history of his seal. Before I entered the academy, I left my original family when my soul power reached rank 10. I headed toward the Great Stardo Forest on my own. Around the perimeter of the Great Stardo Forest, I met eldest senior Bebe and teacher Xiaoya, who has already left the academy. After that, I went into the forest on my own. On the way, I was attacked by a soul beast. It was a 10-year soul beast, and I was fortunate enough to kill it. However, I was critically injured too. But then, the sky turned dreary, and a special strength entered my spiritual sea. After that, I was rescued by Bebe and teacher Xiaoya. Huo Yuao told the truth about Electrolux's background. Aside from the Sky Dream Ice Worm, he recounted everything. He also mentioned how Electrolux had guided him in his spiritual cultivation and passed on some skills to him. Of course, he only talked about how Electrolux was a light-type entity. He didn't mention anything about necromancy. He was certain that the elders would call him an evil soul master if he mentioned Electrolux's title as the Calamity Necromancer and told them that Electrolux had passed down necromancy to him. He didn't want that to happen. He only claimed that Electrolux was a spiritual and light-type archmage. After he finished imparting Electrolux's background, Huo Yuao started to talk about the Snow Empress embryo that was auctioned during the last edition of the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Soul Dueling Tournament, as well as how the body sect had attacked the illustrious Virtue Hall. That was how he had managed to fuse with the Snow Empress embryo, and how Electrolux had helped to seal the Snow Empress. After that, he talked about how he and Wang Dongle went to the Clear Sky Sect, and how he met with Danger on the frigid Jade Essence bed. He also detailed how Electrolux had burned the last shred of his divine sense to help him fuse with the Snow Empress, which gave birth to this spirit. Even with the elders' wealth of experience, they were stunned after hearing his unbelievable stories. Whether it was the remnants of a powerful archmage's divine sense, the fusion process between the Snow Empress and Huo Yuao, or the appearance of the spirit, it was beyond the knowledge of ordinary soul masters. This was how I came to possess the Snow Empress spirit. I call her the Snow Lady. Her look now should resemble an icy snow lady's appearance when they're younger. Her abilities are closely related to mine, but she has her own independent thinking. She can coordinate with me in a fight, as well as use my soul power and her spiritual power. From a certain standpoint, she's a completely independent life form. With my help, her fighting abilities are able to increase significantly. Perhaps it's because the Snow Empress is too strong. There's also teacher Electrolux's divine sense that he combusted. After she fused with me, 4 soul rings were created. At that point in time, Clear Sky Sect Master Nuitian mentioned that it was because the Snow Empress strength needed to take up several soul ring spots, and she had many powerful soul skills that could be bestowed upon me. I'm able to tap into the powers of 3 of these 4 soul rings now. However, I still have no idea how to activate the power of the last soul ring. After possessing the Snow Empress spirit, I thought about it carefully. Our situation was very special. We encountered the sudden change after the Snow Empress strength was sealed. However, what if soul masters fused with the spiritual imprint and soul power of a normal soul beast? It won't be so dangerous. If the soul beasts are willing, I'm 70% confident of completing the seal and creating another spirit. If the soul master's cultivation is below mine, my confidence will be even higher. He stopped speaking here. Then he signaled, and the Snow Lady made one revolution around the elders. She stopped for a moment in front of every elder and allowed them to sense how magical she was. Finally, the Snow Lady returned to his shoulder. She remained as excited and curious as ever. Evidently, she was more than willing to stay outside Huo Yuao's body instead of sleeping inside of it. The elders were silent. The things Huo Yuao had just recounted were too special. Their eyes shone brighter and brighter. Their heartbeats also became faster and faster as they realized how special of an existence a spirit was. Huo Yuao and Electrolux had created it together, and Huo Yuao was the only one who could seal the pact. This also meant that spirits could exist in Shrek Academy if the situation was controlled well. This was an extremely miraculous thing to soul masters. While spirits were still reliant on soul rings, they possessed their own intelligence that soul rings couldn't compare to. Moreover, spirits had a special characteristic that soul rings didn't have. If the soul beasts were willing, the tolerance of a soul master would greatly increase during the fusion process. For example, would Huo Yuao be able to fuse the 700,000 UIST snow lady into a soul ring, even with Electrolux's divine sense? If the snow empress wasn't willing, a large portion of the snow empress strength was still accumulated in his body under the snow lady's control. As his cultivation increased, he would be able to absorb this strength. This was undoubtedly very beneficial for a soul master's cultivation. If this spread, spirits were bound to be the common target of all soul masters on the continent. They could possibly change the entire situation in the world of soul masters, even with the appearance of soul tools. Elder Sun looked at the elders, who looked very pensive, and asked Huo Yuao, what preparations do other soul masters need to make if they want to fuse with a spirit? How many spirits can one soul master have? What are the difficulties in the fusion process? Huo Yuao had thought of these problems for a long time. He replied without hesitation. Firstly, a soul master must have an empty soul ring slot if he wants to fuse with a spirit. That's absolutely necessary. If the spirit he is fusing with is within his tolerance limit, he can fuse with it normally. However, he needs to consider the problem of insufficient soul ring spots if the spirit's cultivation is way above his. This was what happened to me. 4 empty soul ring spots were taken up by the snow lady. Of course, this was because the snow empress was too strong. Elder Sun furrowed his brow and said, however, most soul masters only have 1 empty soul ring spot. Huo Yuao nodded and replied, that's why I believe that it's better for one to be a 7-ring soul sage first. In that way, their tolerance will be better, and they can fuse with stronger spirits. Soul beasts of higher cultivations are also more intelligent. They will be more helpful after the fusion. Furthermore, there's one more special situation where there is more than 1 soul ring spot. Twin martial souls. Elder Sun's eyes brightened and he said, that makes sense. Twin martial souls are normally divided into the main and accessory martial soul. A soul master with twin martial souls won't add rings to his accessory martial soul so easily. Huo Yuao replied, exactly. This was what happened to me. Twin martial souls are very rare in other places, but in our academy, it's not just me that has twin martial souls. That's why we can let soul masters with twin martial souls try out stronger spirits. However, the soul beasts must be willing first, and elders are also required to protect them during the fusion process to ensure their safety. Elder Sun nodded and replied, continue. Huo Yuao said, as for how many spirits one can fuse with, I believe that 1 is the most appropriate. Spirits can greatly increase the abilities of a soul master, and they can also coordinate with soul masters using their intelligence. However, the absorption of a soul master's spiritual power by a spirit when it first develops is very terrifying. I'm a spiritual type soul master, but my spiritual power was almost sucked dry by the snow empress spirit. If not for a fortunate encounter, I would have needed at least 3 years to fully recover. Although most soul beasts won't absorb as much spiritual power as the snow empress, they must be able to do so to some extent. That's why I believe that soul masters must have sufficiently strong spiritual power first before they fuse with a spirit. Their spiritual power will likely be overdrafted after fusing with a single soul beast, so it would be very dangerous for them to fuse with more. However, this will require multiple tests and sufficient experience. If the fused spirit is weak, it might be possible to fuse with more than 1 soul beast. However, I'm not sure if the soul beasts will clash if there are more than 1 of them. After all, every spirit possesses its own intelligence. That's why I believe a decently strong and compatible spirit is the best choice a soul master can make. Huo Yuao was completely in the mood after seeing the elders focused on his description. He said in a deep voice, the biggest problem still lies in soul beasts if we want to try the fusion of spirits. I'm fairly certain about one point. The difference between spirits and soul rings mean that the soul beasts have to be willing. It's very difficult to make them willing. Most soul beasts hate humans. It'll only be those that are old and weak that are willing to fuse in order to extend their lives. It'll be very difficult to find such soul beasts. That's why we need the academy to think of a solution. Elder Sun nodded and said, this is indeed a pressing problem. Although we have our own soul beasts, they are different from humans. Even for the most intelligent soul beasts, their way of thinking is very different from humans. It's very difficult to convince them. However, it's still worth a try. Only the most outstanding soul masters can try fusing with a spirit. Shayosh. Yes. Yan Shayosh stood up. Elder Sun said in a deep voice, from now on, the Academy will carry out code red secret research on spirits. You need to coordinate with Yuao. If you need special help, you can request it from the Sea God's Pavilion. Safety must come first. After finding suitable soul beasts, you'll need to pick the best among those in the inner courtyard. They must be willing to try the fusion. This must be carried out immediately. Zhang Lisan suddenly opened her mouth. Elder Sun, do you think there's a possibility that we can contact the core circle of the Great Stardow Forest and negotiate with them? It's not easy to find an old soul beast, but if it's from their side. Elder Sun shook his head, and the other elders also furrowed their brows. Lisan, your idea is very good, but it's a little wild. We've been enemies for quite some time, and things haven't cooled down even after so many years. It won't be easy to discuss it with them. They won't give us a chance. We can only count on ourselves regarding his matter. We can't take the risk. If those fellows from the Great Stardow Forest discover the existence of spirits, their misunderstandings might deepen. Shrek City is too close to the forest. Don't forget the wave of soul beasts then. We have to research and experiment, but it has to be done very prudently. Zhang Lisan nodded and didn't say anything else. The rest of the elders agreed with Elder Sun. Only Huo Yuao was slightly moved after hearing Zhang Lisan's words. He understood what she was trying to say. She meant that the academy could negotiate with the soul beasts in the Great Stardow Forest. The strongest savage beasts were as intelligent as humans. If they were willing to try, it would be much more convenient for their research of spirits. Of course, he couldn't help but comment even though it was a little inappropriate. Elder Sun, elders, I think Elder Senior Sister has a point. If we make progress in our research, it could be an opportunity to dispel our hatred with the soul beasts from the Great Stardow Forest. If we succeed in our research, we can negotiate with them, and we wouldn't need to hunt soul beasts in the future. We can work with the older soul beasts. They can live longer, and both parties will benefit from this deal. No matter what their style of thinking is, I think it's unlikely that they'll reject such a proposition. Elder Sun laughed and looked at Huo Yuao. He said, young people are indeed very rash. However, your thinking is not mature enough. Why did I ask you how many spirits one person can possess? If a soul master can only fuse with one spirit like you say, how many soul rings does a soul master need? 9. Do you think those top-ranked soul beasts from the Stardow Forest would give us a chance to negotiate knowing that they'd be offering us greater strength to hunt even more soul beasts and have even more soul rings? Elder Sun's words left Huo Yuao in a daze. Yes. He had been too focused on the benefits for soul beasts, but soul masters didn't need spirits. Without soul rings, how was a soul master's cultivation going to increase? Just like Elder Sun had mentioned, he was too focused on things on the surface. This time, Zhang Lisan also nodded silently and didn't say anything else. Huo Yuao sighed in his heart. He knew that spirits couldn't possibly replace soul rings, at least with the knowledge that he had. Elder Sun said, Yuao, you don't have to think too much now either. Whatever it is, this Snow Empress spirit was formed under very special circumstances. We don't know what a spirit will look like if it's formed for ordinary soul masters. If we discover that spirits can replace soul rings after further research, it'll definitely improve the relationship between soul masters and soul beasts. I suggest that you work towards a single direction. If the strength of a spirit can be sealed during the fusion process, a soul master can add another soul skill when he reaches the next bottleneck and undergo a second fusion. If this continues, a spirit can add many soul skills to a soul master. Our hunting of soul beasts can naturally be greatly reduced like that. You've already proved that a soul master can obtain many soul rings from one spirit. Huo Yuao was in awe. Elder Sun was indeed deserving of his title as the master of the Sea God's Pavilion. He managed to point out a clear path for Huo Yuao using simple words. Huo Yuao was sorely lacking in terms of experience. Huo Yuao nodded and replied, I will do my best. In addition, I'm willing to contribute the pact sealing spell to the academy. What? As Hua Yuao spoke, everyone was stunned. All the elders had a shocked look in their eyes. As they looked at each other, they could see the amazement in each other's eyes. Elder Sun had been ready to dismiss the meeting, but after hearing his words, he sat down again and said, Yuao, you have to think this over carefully. Elder Sun's expression was very serious as he said this. All the elders focused their attention on Hua Yuao. Hua Yuao replied with a sincere look on his face. Elder Sun, elders, I've thought over this carefully. I'm an orphan with no family. Everything that I have now was given to me by the academy. I would not be where I am today if the academy didn't nurture me. I received the best education and care here. It's also here that I felt familiar warmth. The results of the research will be very beneficial in settling the conflict between soul masters and soul beasts. If it really succeeds, it'll definitely alleviate the dispute between us and soul beasts. How can I do this alone? I don't only wish to offer the academy the pact sealing spell. I also hope that the academy can develop spirits and make it a future developmental path for all soul masters. Elder Sun said, Yuao, you have to understand that it'll no longer be yours once you give it up. Furthermore, have you thought of how valuable it is? I can tell you that it's priceless. The academy can complete it for you, but we can't repay you for such valuable research. I'll feel uncomfortable. You've already contributed countless valuable blueprints for soul tools to the academy. How can we still take something so valuable from you? Hua Yuao smiled and replied, Elder Sun, I don't know what to say. However, I believe that it's a good thing for the academy to control the method of developing spirits. If it's only in my hands, it might be a bad thing for me. That's why I don't just hope to give it to the academy. I further wish that the academy can announce it to the world in the near future. The research of spirits will be completed by the academy, and not by me alone. I can avoid a lot of trouble this way. The Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Soul Dueling Tournament is about to begin in a few months. I'm going to compete in it with the team, and I'll need to use my spirit then. If any outsiders know that I control the soul method of their creation, it might be very dangerous for me. I still want to contribute more to the academy and the Tang Sect. I'm sure you and the other elders won't watch as I put myself in a perilous spot, right? The academy can take this burden for me. All the elders started to smile as he sounded very relaxed with his words. However, they couldn't hide their admiration for him. Before Hua Yuao had proposed to give the spell to the school, none of the elders had asked him to hand his research over. Why? It was too valuable. Just like Elder Sun had mentioned, spirits were priceless in the eyes of soul masters. With such a secret, Hua Yuao could become a master of his time no matter where he went. Even though what he said was true, how difficult would it be to find a strong backer with such valuable research? Elder Sun looked at all the elders and asked, what do all of you think? I can only say that the academy did nurture Yuao, but the contributions that he has made to the academy have far superseded what the academy has given him. Right now, he still wants to offer such valuable research to the academy. Truthfully, I feel very pressured as the master of the Sea Gods Pavilion. After he finished speaking, Elder Sun also couldn't help but smile. However, he seemed very comforted as he looked at Hua Yuao. All the elders were also silent at this point. For such valuable research, it was really too much to take it for nothing. However, what could the academy give Hua Yuao? He didn't lack for anything now, since he possessed an ultimate martial soul and was an advanced level soul engineer. Hua Yuao thought of something quickly and said, Elder Sun, we can do it this way. I'll give this research to the academy, and I'll give it directly to my benefactor, Teacher Muan. I'll represent Elder Mu as the previous master of the Sea Gods Pavilion and pass this information down to the academy. Since Teacher has already passed away, the academy should naturally inherit everything that he's left behind. I'm sure this works, right? Elder Sun waved his hand and said, isn't that just self-deceiving? All right, you don't have to say anything more. I'll accept your gift on behalf of the academy. However, this research will always be recognized as yours inside the library of the Sea Gods Pavilion, even though we'll claim it to be the academy's research to the outside world. Furthermore, I'll confirm you as the heir to the Sea Gods Pavilion with my current identity as the master of the Sea Gods Pavilion. Does anyone have any objection? Hua Yuao was shocked. Heir to the Sea Gods Pavilion. This also meant that Hua Yuao would succeed Elder Sun when he left his position as the master of the Sea Gods Pavilion. The master of the Sea Gods Pavilion held the highest authority in Shrek Academy. Elder Sun, you shouldn't do this. I'm not qualified. Hua Yuao said anxiously, considering how old Elder Sun was. He only had at most 20 years left as the master of the Sea Gods Pavilion. The person who was most likely to succeed his position as the master of the Sea Gods Pavilion was Yan Shaosh. Yan Shaosh was also more than 100 years old. It was going to be Hua Yuao's turn a few decades after him. Hua Yuao would only be 50 or 60 years old then. Elder Sun smiled and answered, why would you not be qualified? Ask all the elders about your contributions to the academy and whether they think you're qualified. I'm sure that no one around has contributed to the academy more than you. Even in terms of reward, you should be getting more than anyone. Furthermore, I haven't told you one thing. When Elder Mu was still around, he already confirmed you as the heir to the Sea Gods Pavilion. I didn't announce it because you were still too young. However, you forced my hand this time. Hua Yuao subconsciously took a look at Zhang Lasun. He had always thought that she would be the heir to the Sea Gods Pavilion. She wasn't recognized as the top talent in the inner courtyard for nothing. Although she had just passed 30, she already had 8 rings. She wasn't far from a titled Douluo either. Why were the internal courtyard students so submissive towards her? It wasn't because she was pretty, but because she was truly capable. Elder Sun smiled. You don't have to look at Lasun. Lasun will be nurtured as a substitute heir to the Sea Gods Pavilion. While the position of the master of the Sea Gods Pavilion is very important, he doesn't have the right to decide everything. Zhang Lasun smiled at Hua Yuao, but her expression didn't seem to change at all. Hua Yuao's spiritual senses were very acute. He could sense that there was indeed no change in her emotions. Does anyone have any objections? Elder Sun turned to the elders. There were none. Hua Yuao had already demonstrated his abilities in the Sea God's fate. As he teamed up with Wang Donga, they managed to suppress 5 inner courtyard students. Even though there was some kind of elemental suppression, the elders still recognized his abilities. Twin martial souls and an ultimate martial soul. He was a true talent. He even treated the academy as his family and gave such an important research to the academy. Even the strict elders couldn't find any fault with him. Elder Sun said, all right, since there are no alternative propositions, we shall vote. Those who agree with me, please raise your hand. Besides Hua Yuao, the rest of the Sea Gods Pavilion's members raised their right hands. This meant that Elder Sun's proposition had their unanimous approval. From the start, Hua Yuao wasn't just a simple member of the Sea Gods Pavilion. Although his identity wasn't announced outside of the Sea Gods Pavilion, his position in the academy was still enhanced significantly. Elder Sun said, Yuao, you can pass your research to me directly after you record it. I'll keep it in the library of the Sea Gods Pavilion as a code red secret document. Whoever wants to read it in the future must seek permission through a conference first. All the elders agreed with Elder Sun's suggestion. This research was too important, while the library of the Sea Gods Pavilion was the most tightly guarded place in the academy. It was the most appropriate place to store the research. Hua Yuao nodded immediately and felt more relieved. He only had one feeling at this point. It was good to have a family. With the academy around, he wasn't alone. He had been under a lot of pressure because this research was too valuable. It was undoubtedly the best choice to pass it to the academy. Dismissed. Elder Sun dismissed the conference. Hua Yuao stood up hurriedly and watched as the elders left. He only left after them. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.